Welcome to the Gravel Lot, the place where bikes are for everyone.
The Gravel Lot podcast is presented by Be Free Ride Bikes Apparel, providing a fully customized cycling apparel experience to provide you and your team the attention to detail and personal touch that you deserve.
And also brought to you by Grimpour Brothers Coffee, offering handmade coffee roasted weekly in small batches to give you the finest quality coffee to start your day. Choose their subscription service and earn your free bag of coffee today.
Also by BioWheels Fit Studio and Workshop in Cincinnati, Ohio, offering you a full host of bike fitting services intended to provide the cycling enthusiast with the most efficient, comfortable, and sustainable bike fit they have ever had.
And by the Ritual All Natural Skincare, providing small batch, handmade chamois cream, custom blended for your team or shop right here in Cincinnati, Ohio. Contact us today to learn more.
And by Hand Up Gloves. Great gear, better times. Providing a wide range of apparel for bikes, snow sports, and golf in multiple designs and fits to let your personality shine.
Our goal with the Gravel Lot is to inspire cyclists of all stripes to ride bikes, share their story, and have fun. We love all bikes and anyone who wants to ride them. So no matter where you sit on the spectrum of bikes, we'll always have a place for you in the Gravel Lot.
And now, the hosts of TGL, John Woolry and Doug McClintock.
Hey, welcome back to the Gravel Lot. As it is always, I'm John. Joining me as always, the other guy in the room on my, screen over there. It's Doug. Welcome to the Gravel Lot. This is the place where if you ride a bike, you will always have a home. We're so glad you found us, whether you're an existing Pebble or you are new to the show. Welcome, welcome. We love having you.
Yes, welcome home. Welcome home.
Yes, make sure to like, subscribe, hit the notifications, whatever platform you're on, do whatever things that platform does to tell us that you want to like see more of this stuff. So just do that. Like, just do that.
Yeah, I mean, and tell your friends to do that too.
Yeah,
Get
that's
them to
cool.
come watch this, subscribe to this, engage with
Right.
us. We need you here.
Right. And then go to the gravelot.com and follow, like, see all of the other content we have there. See the Beeline articles with Pete Hitzman. Follow the Girls Moving Mountains podcast. And donate to TGL today because, like, selfishly, Doug and I are putting our own money into making this thing. So anything that you guys are willing to part with to help us make this thing that I think we all love, like, that would be pretty awesome. So you can follow us along on all the socials at the Gravel Lot and keep up to date on everything that's going on. So,
Absolutely.
Doug,
Yes.
how was your ride this week?
Interesting. Good things. I'm working on, you may have seen, I made a post on my own private social media that I rode back-to-back days on a bike. It was on a trainer, but I did it.
Hey.
And I think that's the first time since October. Over pandemic, I've been stressing out a lot with my mental health and really realized that I've been using the bike for so long to really combat everything in my life that was stressing me out or bothering me. And I needed to fix that. So I had to walk away from the bike to some extent in order to build a healthy relationship with it again. So that's what I'm trying to do. And that's good. So I rode the bike back-to-back days this weekend. That was awesome. And it felt good. I rode today before the show. So that was pretty cool. Hopefully y'all are going to be seeing me or John ride more on certain platforms.
Twitch.
So follow along.
Twitch.
Yeah. We're likely going to do some streaming of us getting beaten on by Zwift as we do workouts and stuff, and you can come and heckle us on Twitch and whatnot. So keep your eyes peeled for that. But also, I had a bunch of dental work started this week, so that was awesome. I will
photos exist.
Yeah, which I will not share, and I'm not allowed to share with. Ellens.
No, they're not worth sharing. They are kind of they're scary.
Right.
Not good. But all dental work sucks. That's just par for the course, really.
But I'm getting new front teeth that were ruined in a bike accident, so I'm getting some new ones again.
Oddly enough, in resetting your relationship with bikes.
Correct. It all comes full circle. So, John, how's the ride been for you this week?
It's been all right. I think I'm maybe 1 or 2 weeks ahead of kind of where you're at in terms of clearing my head from just getting bogged down in the minutia of work from home, be at home, stay safe, worry about all of my friends, my family, all of you guys. That just those burdens that you put on yourself kind of collectively start to weigh you down over a while. And I think there's some things that happened in the middle of January from a political perspective that have alleviated some of that stress in terms of just digesting constant streams of content, but
frustration.
And just frustration, whether it's the stuff you believe in or it's the stuff that you are against or whatever team you're on. It doesn't matter. It's just that there's that vitriol that lives out in the world, and I think getting more distance from that is good. But like, work is good. Still working out, like that's nice because it makes me, like, I'm starting to try and appreciate all of those little experiences of, what does a good workout feel like? Not necessarily like, oh my God, I was like resting my forehead on the handlebars when I was done and I couldn't walk and all of that, like, macho nonsense. Whatever. But just feeling my body doing work and like reconnecting with all of that has been nice. And getting into a good groove of work and feeling like my mind is doing work has been really nice. And just feeling purposeful has been good. Like, that's so important for me. Like, not to be a little like woo woo, but like me as a Capricorn, like, I need to do work and I need to like solve problems. And if I don't have problems, then like I'll manufacture my own. And so, like, giving myself tasks, like much like you would a Labrador, I kind of need to do that, and I've gotten back to being a little bit better about that. So it makes me more present in kind of everything that I do. So it's good. I think recentering is always good, and always trying to cut myself a lot of slack lately as well.
That's good. You got to do that every once in a while.
It's something I am awful at. So like any sort of slack that I cut myself has been outstanding. So
that's good. And I'm always over there telling you should. That's kind of part of our relationship as friends.
And then we argue, and then it's fine.
Now, I don't want the Pebbles who are listening and joining us tonight live here on whatever platform you are to cut our guest tonight some slack in the AMA. So make sure to stick around with us afterwards. Send questions in now if you want, if you have them, or as they bubble up as we're having the conversation. We'll stick around. We will have an AMA with our guest this week, just so that you can ask those burning questions or prank them with your jokes.
Yeah, and even
if you have them,
and even if you're not listening to this live, which you should be doing Tuesday nights, 6:30, Twitch, YouTube, Facebook, all the major platforms. If you're listening to this on the podcast, you can still send us questions that we can get Jeremiah to answer. But I think there's so many unique things that are going to come up in this episode. Doing the research for today, I am very, very excited about what tonight has to bring. So I think let's jump right into it and start the chat. Start everybody submitting, what you want us to talk about, what your questions are for Jeremiah, and just keep them coming.
Absolutely. So without further ado, I'm bringing in our guest this week. We are very excited to have him. He has a list of accomplishments that is just bananas. We'd probably spend the whole episode talking about all of these accomplishments if we decided to actually just do only that.
And he wouldn't get to talk. We would just be listing off accomplishments, and he would just be sit there looking pretty.
But the highlights are amazing. So let's not miss those. 16-time USA national team member, Pan Am Golds medalist, 2-time national champion. He has won pretty much every major US-based mountain bike stage race. American Mountain Bike Classic, Breck, Pisgah, Transylvania, and he's a multiple-time winner of the National Ultra Endurance Series, the NUE Series, and a bunch of other things, and a bunch of other things, and a bunch of other things. But he's an awesome dude who I've had the pleasure of meeting at a World Cup last year in Snowshoe. But we'll let him tell stories. We'll touch on some racing stuff, but we're really going to dive into the man, the myth, the legend. So let's get after it. Jeremiah Bishop, welcome to the Gravel Lot. Thanks for having me, guys. I feel like it's been a little time in the making, but so glad I could join you for this evening, and looking forward to it. It's gonna be really, really pretty fun. I'll have some stories I'm sure that no one's ever heard before.
Yeah, first off, I want to correct Doug, because anytime that I get to correct him, it's awesome. It was not last year, because the Snowshoe was actually 19.
Like a missed year.
Well, yeah. And that's the thing is, like, we've now, like, it ran all last year we were just living in March 2020 from March 2020 through December 2020. But hopefully we've moved on from March and we're actually into 2021. So more than a year, but yes, Snowshoe when we had the World Cup, the downhill World Cup. So I was unfortunately not able to make that.
Last regular season. And yes, you missed out on probably one of the biggest moments. I think really the Renaissance moment for American mountain biking. Like, of course, with no big deal, John.
Shut up.
Yeah, I'm gonna get into that real quick, but I think that kind of spans like almost my entire career, because my career started during the heyday of mountain biking, and like there are all these pros and tractor trailers for Volvo Cannondale and Chevy Trucks team and all these other teams, and I was like this semi-pro kid just trying to make it and bumming rides to races, but that's what I was aspiring to, because it was like these people were making hundreds of thousands of dollars a year, with the Volvo contracts and with all the automotive sponsorships and stuff like that. And then I finally was just getting on the edge of it. And then, it started to collapse basically. And, but now we have this kind of full circle with Red Bull in the World Cup of mountain biking and top female athletes, especially with Katie Courtney and this sort of renaissance with NICA. And with all the stuff that's sort of like coming together all at once. And Snowshoe was like the crowning moment of that, for sure. So really,
I think a lot of people are so glad they went to that race that did.
Yeah. Well,
Stop.
I
Just stop. Stop. Just
Just
stop.
stop right there.
look, we have good inside track information that won't likely be the last that we see there. I mean, I think it was so awesome, and there was so much good stuff going on and so much good energy, but it is cool how it's come full circle. But I think where we need to start the story is where we like to start the story with everybody for the first time on the show, which is how you found mountain bikes, because everyone finds it in a different way. Where did bikes and mountain bikes specifically enter your life?
I remember like it was yesterday. The first time I got on a mountain bike, and it was a friend of mine. He got a new mountain bike. We had just been riding cobbled together bikes. We rode BMX bikes. I mean, we wouldn't take BMX bikes on like 12-mile rides. I'm talking like standing the whole time. Just sort of dumb adventures as kids do. I wouldn't call it like the start of my cycling, but it's like what kids do today, and they just look for something to do, play bike tag. We used to play all kinds of dumb games, really dangerous games like bike tag. And bike tag, by the way, should be an Olympic sport. I'm just going to leave it there. Because you literally have to make contact with the other person, but you're also going like 30 miles an hour. So how do you and more or less, most of this stuff made us really good on handling different scenarios and riding, whether we were riding, trying to do wheelies or trying to do bike tag or whatever. And then one of my friends got a mountain bike. It was a Trek Antelope, fire engine red, but it had 3 gears in the front. And I mean, it was like big, medium, and this tiny little gear. And I was like, hey, can I hop on it for a minute? And I had this really steep hill in the back of our yard. I mean, you could barely walk up it without putting your hands on the ground. And he's like, yeah, just use the thumb lever and drop into the easiest gear. I bet you could ride right up that. And so, I hopped on and just charged into it and just, and it just mic drop. I was like, holy shit, that was awesome. And then I was like, what about those stairs? I wonder if I could ride down the stairs, shift into the gears, go across, go down the stairs. 20 minutes goes by. My friend's like, where the hell's my bike, dude? And I'm like riding up across the grass and over roots. And I knew right there, like it was very different than anything else because, you have to be in the sidewalk, you have to be in the street for a road bike, but the world is your playground on a mountain bike. You can ride anywhere.
Yeah.
Just pick a place. So that was really the moment. I really remember it quite clearly. And, I didn't have a mountain bike for quite a long time after that. Like I was riding this just beater road bike. And then I got like a straight handlebar and like cyclocross tires for it. The brakes were terrible though. I remember the first time I went mountain biking, we went to a place called Soldier's Delight. I grew up in Baltimore County, and then my friends were like, hey, we know it's a pretty cool place to go to. And, it's like friends getting friends into something fun. And, we went out and started to ride and it was really fun. And, I was pretty fit. So I was able to hammer and catch up on the climbs and slip out. But I remember trying to go down one of these shaly off-camber descents on basically a cross bike with flat bars. And I just couldn't slow down. I'm going faster and faster and faster. And then finally I just like clip a tree, crash, I got blood on my knees, but I'm like laughing. My friends are laughing. I mean, it was just awesome. I mean, it's the stuff that kids, live for, is just doing dumb stuff and being completely unprepared. And those are some of my most fun memories, is just, some of the crazy stuff we used to do.
Well, it's very interesting hearing you tell these stories because like we talked in the intro, we've done some digging and we learned a lot about you, partially from talking to you, but also like snippets of interviews here and there. And there's a big chunk of your life that you haven't talked about, and we can talk about potentially why that is. But Doug and I have discussed this a lot on the show, that there's a huge barrier to entry to getting into bikes, period. That there's probably a reason that there's like a lot of rich suburban kids that get into bikes, get into multiple bikes and things like that. And mountain biking is kind of another level up from, buying a road bike, because all of the parts are more expensive. There's just more things to break. There's just more things to go wrong.
More things you can slam into a tree because you're riding
Right.
around.
But to be fair, my mountain biking career is off to a great start, that I did not know that you and I share the fact that our first mountain bike experience was on a cross bike, because mine was Houston Woods on a cross bike on the 12-mile cross country loop. And I crashed so many times, but all it did was make me want to, like, one, go get a legit mountain bike, but two, also made me appreciate just like how much fun that whole experience was.
Totally.
But getting back to kind of your history, you come at bikes from kind of the antithesis of kind of what we're outlining, in terms of you did not come from money. You did not come from a lot of those like places of privilege. So can you talk a little bit about kind of your experience as a child, and it's easy to gloss over talking about like, oh, we rode cobbled together BMX bikes, because I think back to times where like, oh, I flatted a tire and I needed to put a new tire on it, but we're talking about kind of different things entirely.
Oh yeah, it was really I have to just kind of teleport myself back to that place because it seems like an entire lifetime ago. I mean, 2 lifetimes ago. But I grew up in a suburb of Baltimore City. My mom left Maine when I was about 4 years old. She was in an abusive relationship with my father, and she basically just had to get out of there, took the kids kind of thing, and moved to near where grandma lived. We were kind of in a rough neighborhood. It was HUD housing. I know all about the government cheese. It was really interesting because when people ask me, if I wish things were different growing up, I don't. I really don't. And I have a lot of reasons why, and I'll get into that later. But I'll sort of spill back into the story of like getting into bikes, and then getting into trouble, and then finally finding cycling as a driver or something that I could really put my energy into. And I mean, kids are kids. Once summer comes and you're not in school and you're not like
no rules.
It's just hey, you know what? And we were looking for action. We were looking for interesting things to do, and we had nothing to do. So we would play, Red Box. We would play, we would tag each other with balls, like just, play baseball for a couple weeks, football for a couple weeks, just whatever we could. We would get in trouble. We would definitely, we were a bunch of kids with no guidance. And, in life, you need to learn the difference between right and wrong. And if no one teaches you, then you're just going to have to learn in the world. And the world is a great teacher if you're willing to.
Yeah.
Let me tell you what.
Harsh sometimes. It will certainly spin you around, but it'll teach you.
It will, but, I think that you can never, you can't always tell someone a lesson. But when you pull a cat by the tail, you will learn a lesson.
I've tried to tell my parents this so many times. Like, they're like, why? They're like, you grew up in a space that none of this was a problem, that you created all these specific problems for yourself. Why? And I was like, I don't know. That's how I have to learn.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Didactic learning.
Yeah.
I mean, the interesting thing though, is that I was surrounded with, very mixed examples. But the thing is, when you only see good examples, then you really are actually lacking a perspective, a real broad perspective of top to bottom. And when you see really bad examples and bad lessons, then you can compare those with the good lessons and start to make up your own mind on cause and effect and where you want to be on that continuum. And so growing up, My mom had substance abuse issues, depression. She was in college. She was trying to raise 2 kids. She was trying to do part-time jobs, all while the bills are like stacking up, and it's just a stress conveyor belt.
Yeah.
And what a lot of people don't understand about poverty and generational poverty, not to get into this whole thing, but I've seen how that can happen. Is that it's not just like, hey, go get a job. When you see
Yeah,
a
bootstrap
homeless
yourself.
person, right? You see a homeless person on under a bridge, you're like, hey asshole, go get a job. Is a lot of people's first instinct, but this person doesn't have an address to put on the job
Right.
application. They don't even have clothes to show up in a presentable manner for an interview. And then you talk about drug addictions and all kinds of other, a myriad of social issues. I'd say even probably a large majority of homeless people actually have psychological issues that aren't diagnosed, or in any case, I've seen the influx of those people in my life, so I have a very, very different perspective. um, Glad to be on the other side of that now, and have a wildly successful career in my eyes. I never imagined I would like be at a high pro level. I thought maybe I would be lucky enough to kind of scrape in there and dance with the top riders for a little bit. But to go on and to do what I've done in the sport is nothing less than miraculous.
So how does that dream begin to build for you? How does that like idea of, okay, I'm growing up in this rough situation, all these things are going on, it's very, it's very difficult. What was your, like, you climb up that hill, you're like, this is amazing, I love mountain bikes, I want to get a mountain bike. What is the next step in you building that dream towards getting
Mhm.
to where you are now?
Well, a lot of it has to come from confidence. I mean, you look at the psychological profiles of people that start with nothing or have nothing. They also, they struggle with self-value, discipline, um, and confidence. When someone says, "Hey, you should go start a business," and you're like, "No, no way, dude, I can't do that." Um, when someone first decided, "Hey, you should go and do a race. You're pretty fast." I was like, "No, no, no, no. I'm no good. I'm like fast for you guys, but I'm gonna get my ass kicked if I go to this race." And I was really nervous, but my friends talked me into going to a local race. And they're like, "Look, no one's even going to notice. You're just going to be anonymous. Just jump in there and do the race." I'm like, "All right, fine, fine. I'll do the race." I had ridden the course. I saw all the course arrows up for the Maryland Mutter, which is in Patapsco State Park. And yeah, this is one of those good memories I have with my mom. So my mom had this old, like, beat up station wagon, but the thing was like 18 feet long. It
Yeah,
was
of
like
course.
one of
Is it
the
like
Old
we're
school.
talking we're
Yeah.
talking
Old school
yeah,
Americana.
70s, early 80s station wagon?
the thing, yeah, must have weighed 8,000 pounds. I mean, well, you could get all the dogs in there. My mountain bike went in the
It's
back.
7 o'clock.
And it's 7 o'clock. And, it was funny because all my friends in the neighborhood went too, like to cheer me on,
That's
which
cool.
never happens. I mean, like all the other races, that it was very, very memorable because it rained crazy, tons of rain. It was super, super nasty and muddy and running, and crashed, and chain got caught up behind the cassette. But I couldn't quit because my, like, buddies were like running next to me up the hill, go Maya, Maya, just taunting me with these, like, heckles. It was interesting because when your friends are watching, you're not going to quit, even if your arm's like cut off. You're like
Sure.
going to finish.
No, you are.
And yeah, it was awesome. Wicked hard too, though. I mean, like, just snot, and you're like breathing and going so hard. And I think I was up to like fifth or something, and then fell back to 11th. And moved up to fourth, and then, I finished, and I just remember crossing the line, just collapsing, just looking at the sky. My mom came over and laughed, and she's like, "You're a mess." And then she sprayed some water in my face, and she's like, "Well, how was it?" And I was like, "That was awesome, but I'm never doing that again."
I feel
little did you know.
I feel like that's every single cyclocross race and the few like short track mountain bike races that I've done, because the efforts are to me very similar. Like you just go until you see like spotty things, or your field your field of vision gets really narrow. Like I describe my races and I make Doug very uncomfortable because he thinks that I'm like gonna die. Yeah,
that's how you know you're going hard enough.
Thank you.
No. I also think John has a heart condition because of this, but whatever. That's a different podcast. Different podcast.
So okay, so you're laying on the ground, and there's a couple other topics we want to touch on with this first race, but you're laying on the ground. Did you have any wherewithal in that scope of experience? Like now that you're looking back on it with hindsight, was there any part of you during that time period that was like, I found it. This is my thing?
Nope.
None.
Nope. It was afterward. It was like 3 days, 4 days. And I started telling the stories, and I was like, wow, that was crazy. How I could pass those guys up the climbs, and then I crashed, but then I got back up.
Little some fishtails. Some fishtails started happening, and you were like, no.
The whale gets bigger with every story.
Well, it's also that what if was in my mind. I was like, I bet, the way I was moving, if I didn't have my chain stuck in the damn back of the wheel for like 15 minutes, I probably could have gone top 3 in that race. Might have been on the podium, and you start to think like, hey, maybe if I'm a little bit more dialed, train a little bit better. And a few weeks went by, and sure enough, I went to the state championships that fall. I was third in the beginner junior race there. And then that's when I was like, okay, this is cool. I did one more race, which was the Coburn QWK challenge. Anyway, it was like sponsored by a radio station or something, but it was the amateur race that went along with Wilderness 101, the longest running 100-mile mountain bike race on the East Coast. And meanwhile, while we're finishing our little dinky 20-mile race, like these guys are coming through after doing 100 miles, which was completely crazy. Never, ever going to do that either. But yeah, I think it's for most people, there's not like this moment. I guess if I had that moment, it was the next spring. I'd done some training. I heard that you could be a pro mountain bike racer and make a living doing it. And yeah, I was like, sounds like me. I want to do that. And I started to train. I really was reading books and taking advice from some of the local mentors. I had a couple guys that raced that lived in a few blocks up, and got to work. I set a vision. I got to work, and yeah, it was wild.
So you're how old right now at this time?
Oh, 16.
Okay.
I was
16 is a tough time for a lot of men when they are in this space, right? Young men. There's a lot of other influences,
distractions.
Yeah, plenty of distractions. Plenty of distractions.
Yeah, and there's everything.
Whether it's people that you're romantically interested in, whether it's like alcohol and cars and all of this stuff. Like you mentioned mentors in your space. How did those people influence you, and who were they at that time, like to start guiding you into the space of, okay, you think you might be good enough, let me show you what I know? And how did that process happen for you?
That really didn't happen until after that first race. So like the time period from when I was, being influenced a lot by my friends, and then did this first.
And they're a good influence because they're like, yeah, you're fast, you're awesome.
Yeah, not all good influence.
Yeah.
That's the bike story. But when you look at like, I had to search those people out in some cases, and in some cases they came to me. But it's a lot like you get these mentors that are like, hey, Johnny's pretty fast. Maybe we'll take him to a race, or help him out with some training. They generally want to see someone that's interested in the sport, and it gives them a feeling, a good feeling to help somebody. And so I had some local friends, Rick Anderson, who was a fast sport level racer, and Mark Wood, or some local guys like that race. My neighbor was a great influence, but he didn't really mountain bike. But he definitely took me to a few races and helped me get my first real race bike out of layaway, which was a whole other chapter in the book.
So hold on, let's go into that chapter. Rumor has it that you won that first race on a bike that may not have been yours. Am I correct on that?
Absolutely right.
Well, but to be fair, this is what led to all of the technical issues, because if it was your bike, it would have been dialed. So now, like, as a pro racer, the best pros always have the best excuses. So, like,
yes.
You had a built-in excuse before you ever started. Like, oh,
it wasn't properly tuned when I stole it.
Boom.
When I stole it.
Boom.
No, that is, yeah, it's terrible. And I can only laugh and jest because I feel like it is 100% full circle. And it was something that was one of those moments where your friends are talking you into doing something, and it sounds like a pretty good idea, and you can just bring it back when you're done. And it's amazing how you can make any bad idea into a good argument in your head if you talk through it the wrong way. If you just say, hey, I'll just do it once, or I'll give it back when I'm done, or you can justify the wrong things. And I think this last year has taught us that we can paint over bad concepts, or we can justify bad behavior. And for me, honestly, like it was just one of those things. The crappy cyclocross bike that I had, I broke the fork on it. There was nothing we could do to fix it. We bent it back in a sewer grate. Went to go and buy another fork for it, but there wasn't one, and it was really expensive, and didn't have any money, and it was a month without a bike. And so it was bad. Our crew decided to steal some unlocked bikes that were sitting on someone's deck one night, and it didn't go well. But before the police came and knocked on the door, there was that race on Saturday that happened, and pretty wild.
So I think this is important for a number of reasons, because you can make bad decisions. I make a ton of them. I make them probably daily. That's just a feature of my life. But when we make bad decisions or poor decisions, there's always an ability to come back from that in some fashion. We have the ability to redeem ourselves. We have the ability to change the way we've done things. And I think it's interesting that your story is part of that. And I think that's what gives you a space now where you sit that allows you to appreciate that. But when you got through all that kerfuffle and you got your first proper race bike, what did it feel like to have a thing that you had obviously saved for and worked for to some extent, and to have someone bestow help on you to make that possession be part of you as you're building this dream? What did that feel like in that moment when you were able to get that first bike?
It was incredible feeling. And I washed dishes for like 7 months to get this first bike. I also had to split time with community service, which is taking a lot of my time.
Yeah.
But I would ride my bike up to the high school and help the janitor polish doorknobs, polish floors, polish, there's this splits, the slats for the, the school blinds. I learned the meaning of work that summer.
Yeah.
As soon as I got done one hallway, which high school hallway is like when you're
They're long.
counting a little tiny spot and it takes you like 10 minutes to get, this little couple circles, and you look down the distance of the hallway, it's like 2 football fields. And you're like, I'm going to be here for like 9 hours just to get this straightaway done. It was valuable. And you know what? I befriended the high school janitor. I had my little packed lunch in there. It was like my first job, honestly.
Yeah.
And then I got the job, washing dishes. Worked up to buy this S-Works stump jumper, which was really, the most bike I could afford. All my friends said, hey, just buy the most bike you can possibly afford. I'm like, okay, sounds like great advice. But, there was some truth to it. But, I got down to the last $500, and my neighbor, who was Eric Peel, an incredible influence on me. And, he wrote a little bit. So Eric, African-American guy from our neighborhood, lived next door to me, was just awesome. He was single, but he was a electronics engineer at the local TV station, but a super cool guy. He would like, hey, I got this gadget I'm working on, and kind of bring the kids in and come check this out. And he set up a little TV station in his basement and broadcasted it to our house, and
That's cool.
It was just a really positive influence on us. And he saw me out there training, I'm doing push-ups in the backyard. I'm running up the hill. I'm like doing all this stuff. It's just crazy. Neighbors are looking at me like I'm an idiot. And he's like, how much do you have left on that bike? I know you put the bike on layaway in January and it's like June. And I was like, well, it's about $500. I'm getting there. And he was like, look, I know you got the race next week. We'll go. I'll get it out of there. You can just keep paying me off, and we'll get you this bike, and you can go and race that thing. You've got it, most of the way there. And it's like, really? And it was just like that moment. I went, got the bike, learned how to set up the suspension, and it was one of those moments, when you get your first race bike, and the smell of the rubber, like. It's just an amazing thing. The bike day.
Had you ever had anyone in your life take, not that it's necessarily taking a flyer, but had you ever had anyone in your life take that much of an interest in you up to that point?
Outside of family, of course, but
yeah,
no.
So
I think it's very noteworthy that Eric, Mark, Mason Day, the few people that did, I didn't realize it at the time because I'm a kid, punk
Sure.
kid. I didn't realize how significant a lot of these things are. But I know now, as a father, and I know now when you don't have anything, if someone just checks in on you or someone makes a small gesture, that can be huge. It can be the thing you remember for years. And it's so important for us to kind of keep that in mind. When we're helping youth, or we're helping kids, or we're, just giving that person a pat on the back and, a little bit of help, how big it is when you don't have much.
Yeah, that was beautiful, because I was gonna tee that up so you could kind of cover that, but so I'm wondering, with all of the kind of trials, getting in trouble, doing your community service, getting a job, probably working harder than most other kids your age to go get something that probably no one probably directly in your circle really understood kind of where you were going with it, or the gravity of which you could go take it other places and it could take you across the globe. But looking back on it now and thinking back on the influences that you had, good and bad, as you said, because you had both polarities. Do you think that those things were on the right timetable for you, or do you think you were forced to grow up faster than most kids?
Oh, for sure. Grow up faster than most kids. I think when you're surrounded by, you know, behavior that I was surrounded by, it forces you to say, do I want to be a part of this behavior, and be part of this drama that's going on, or do I want to get out and do my own thing? So the second I was old enough to get out of the house and had enough money scraped up in a pile, I was going to go rent an apartment and get out of there. And I think that a lot of people in that, especially the oldest of the kids, of us three kids, you have this sort of, independence. You're independent, and you're like, I can take care of myself. It's going to be on my terms.
Right.
And I still had a lot to learn. There was still like this continuum between racing high level junior racing and racing semi-professionally, and then finally breaking through. But for what a lot of my peers in the high level racing, for what a lot of them, it took a couple years, it took me like 5 years. I mean, it was like a real struggle, just to get it all together.
Why do you think it was a real struggle to get it all together? Was it situational for you, or do you think it was like your own like personal challenges? Why do you think that was harder for you than other folks?
Well, I'm not saying it was harder for me than others. I know a lot of people have had it a lot worse than I
Oh,
did.
for sure.
But what I would say is that when you're living by yourself, you also have to pay all the bills, and you're working 40, 45 hours a week at the bike shop, and then spending all your money on race entry fees. And then you get to the race and your bike breaks down, then you're back in the shop on Monday, and you're just like constantly playing this game of like catch up. And then trying to train enough to perform at a high level. It's something I needed to understand. And I kind of broke through, about when I was 23. And then really researched training, learned more about training, had a coach, my first sort of, dabblings with like someone that knew a little bit of what to do. I had to work really hard. I think one of the things about my physiology is that I need to ride a lot. I need to really, really punish my body to get that adaptation. Also you just need to learn to love the process. And I loved racing like when I was 21, but like the training, like that real rocky training that you have to do to be the best. I mean, I was good, but to be the best, you've got to train harder than everybody else.
Well, and like you talked when you guys were trying to make me feel bad about missing snowshoe, you were entering that transition period, going from being like espoir to pro ranks during a time where there was a lot of money and a lot of influence, and a lot of athletes were choosing that as their sport. And the more money you dump into a sport, the more people want to come and be a part of it, which then naturally makes the bar higher to get into. So in making that transition, what were some of your either aha moments or times where you feel like you actively leveled up and kind of went from 22 to 23, or when you feel like I'm making steps forward?
Well, I remember we had the national Seven Springs in Pennsylvania, and I was trying to get my upgrade from semi-pro, which is kind of like U23 now, to the pro ranks. And I remember I wrote in for an upgrade, and I had like a 6th place at Mount Snow the year before in the semi-pro class. And I'm like, that's almost top 5, right? So I wrote in. Eric Moore wrote me back the letter, said, sorry, your application is declined, lack of sufficient results. sign Eric Moore. And I took it personally. I taped it above my bed in the apartment where I was renting and hustling and trying. And I looked at that son of a bitch every day. And I was like, there's your motivation.
Oh, I've done that with YouTube comments.
Yeah. Yeah, man. Well, that's it, man. Mental judo. I think the reason that I made it was because I learned mental judo. And that's taking the negative into positive. Taking, that energy and frustration and spinning it right into work, focus, ethic. And I got to work. I really, really structured my training. I planned it out. I worked really hard. And then I remember getting second place to a young Costa Rican lad at the national in Wisconsin, and applied for my pro upgrade. And then I got 16th in the first pro race I did. And the pro races then were very, very stacked. And we had a field of 100 plus riders. And I rode from the back of the field like a rocket. Like I was just passing groups of 5, like they were standing still. And then I finally got up into the 20th place. And there's this guy, Dave Weens, that was having a bad day. Dave Weens is like the vanilla gorilla. I mean, he was.
Oh yeah, I mean, just
I like how you said this guy, Dave Weens.
This guy.
Guy.
Well, he was. Well, when I realized who it was, then I was like, oh my God, it's Dave Weens. But yeah, I was coming up on him, and he's like, right on, man, you're doing great. Gave me a big push. And I'm like, who does that? Here I am like racing. I'm like fighting for every inch. And this guy gives me a huge push because he knows I'm having I'm a guy in a bike shop jersey. I don't have like a Chevy Trucks jersey on or a Nissan jersey on. And yeah, man, it was amazing. It was really, really cool. Never forgot it. I reminded him of it. We later became teammates with Topi Gergon. And I was able to reciprocate that favor in the last race that he did at Leadville.
That's awesome. That's so what a good opportunity for a little bit of hey man, I still remember this and now I get to give back. That's awesome. That comes full circle.
It was super cool. Super, super cool. But that moment, that was the moment where I was like, yes.
So
I gotta have it.
In there, you said something very interesting that I kind of want of tie back to you growing up and kind of your maturation process of, you said that you actively chose to buckle down, put in the work, put your head down, and no matter what the motivation is, who cares where the motivation comes from as long as you actually put the work in to do the thing you want to go get. And you mentioned this also in the beginning of it's easy for folks that are stuck to feel stuck and to not take those chances and to just kind of lean into, well, why even try? Because it's not going to make any difference. So, and again, we're like the benefits of hindsight and time and so many experiences that you've had. Looking back again on all of this stuff, do you feel like there were experiences or there were moments that really shaped that within you to make you choose, put your head down, go to work, polish the floor, instead of leaning into the, well, it doesn't even matter. Why should I try? Because it's not I'm just gonna be stuck here. Because I think that for talking to you and getting to know you before this and walking into this interview, that to me is this shining beacon that your personality shows it, your accomplishments show it, and then discovering all of these things that could have been potential barriers in your childhood, in your teenage years, you getting in trouble, you getting a bike stolen in return after stealing a bike, all of these things that could have been easily viewed as barriers to you.
Just put your head down.
Yeah. What, do you think it's innate in you, or is there learnings that you've like walk us through kind of Maya's brain here?
I do remember the one of my mentors, like I think one of the races I had an issue, flat tire or something, and then I dropped out of the race. And I remember my mentor, like at the time, saying, no matter what, finish. And I was kind of like, why? Like if your life, you know?
Yeah.
And he was like, well, because you'll feel good afterward instead of feel like crap. In short, there's something about finishing that is validating, even if you are last place, even if you walk your bike across that line. So pretty much after that, like one experience, which was, I kind of had a good reason to stop racing because my bike was not working. But after that moment, I said, you know what? That means something to me. And, it was about that point I started to collect all my number plates of every race that I finished. And I've got a laundry basket full of over 1,250 number plates and bib numbers. And most of these, I would say 99.9% of them I finished. The only ones that I did not finish had to do with like broken bones and backboards,
Oh God.
stuff like that level. Because if I'm going to take the start, I'm going to finish. And so back to what I'm getting at, John, is that this learning process and this experience learning, it taught me that if you finish and then if you focus on your internal effort and focus on the internal factors, that you can change the external outcomes and you can change some of the things that are working against you.
Do you think this is part of why these crazier races came along later in your career? These like bananas things, like let me do a stage race where I got to be on a bike for 7 days. It'll be a thing. I'll do it at 10,000 feet elevation. Like, do you think that like that idea of don't quit, continue to do this, push hard and finish drove kind of that later piece of your career?
Absolutely. The mental toolbox is there, man. It's when you're doing short and high intensity races, you need to have good mental habits. But if you're doing a long, really difficult 100-mile race or, racing through night, that's when it really gets to be a mind game and it becomes, not just how well you can perform physically, but how well you can perform mentally. And the harder, the better, typically for me.
Isn't that what we're all doing in 2020 to 2021, right? It is the darkness of the night. And some of us have the toolkit and some of us don't.
Absolutely. I've been really trying to share a little bit about that. And, not every one of my days is roses. Like, days I'm just like, just not motivated, don't want to do it, but then I just make a deal with myself and say, hey, I'm going to pull the shorts up and I'm just going to ride for half an hour. And then sure enough, after half an hour goes by, 45 minutes goes by and an hour. And then I'm like, man, I'm so glad I got out today. I feel so much better. So I've tried to share that a lot because I know that like no other time in modern history, people are struggling with mental health. They're struggling with sense of purpose. They're really having a tough time defining productivity when other things are just a brick wall. And I think that, when you focus internally, then you can really redefine, your success or what you define as self-value, and having these things that you do as a routine, having goals and setting out to achieve those, working your way toward those is a good feeling, even if it's checking off really small check boxes. So sure.
Is it really not to downplay any of that, but I think there's this there's this perception that all the mental game is this like Pandora's box, and it's like this dark, weird, ethereal concept that some people have it and other people don't, and oh, this person, they always crack when it comes down to, you know, go time or whatever those things are. But and I know that somebody's going to ask this question, is there anything that you do specifically to train that muscle? Because I think the answer of set a goal, go get a goal, check the box, and your description of getting on the trainer, just pull the shorts on and go do a half hour, is like what this guy and I have been living for like the last couple months of just
Yes.
get on the bike and do something, it'll be fine. And like the pre and post workout feeling of just like mental clarity, and we were talking about it pre-show, of just like, go do it, you'll feel better, everything will make more sense. But for you, do you feel like there are any specific tools that you can give people outside of the, you know, the obvious of make a checklist and check it twice and make sure that you know, you're setting approachable SMART goals, SMART goals. But like, so what are some of the things that I think you could maybe unlock for people, if there is anything to unlock?
For sure. I mean, you touched on some of the more well-known ways to keep yourself on track with goals. I think it's super important for people to realize that goals don't need to be huge. When I started to lift weights again in the fall, my goal was to pick up some heavy stuff once a week, just to go and do something, you know, just to get in the rhythm that Tuesday, I'm going to go do some squats with some of my tent weights, do my push-ups, do some crunches, do some planks, and then, you know, progress slowly from there, and not like some monster goals. I think a lot of people will like have this New Year's resolution and then just say, hey, I'm going to go and ride 200 miles. Yeah, easy there, buddy. It's really about having some goals also that are meaningful to you as well. And what I mean by that is, like, you know, some of those best moments that I did have this year was when I set out to have some purpose behind the goals. And so I wanted to do the Rockstar, which is a 255-mile gravel route between Harrisonburg and Roanoke, formerly known as Rocktown, and formerly, or affectionately known as Star City, because there's a huge glowing star in Roanoke. Anyway, long and short of it, this route is psychotic. It is like, parts of it are mountain biking. You know, I'm like starting the thing at like 2:30 in the morning, riding till like 11 at night. I mean, it's like 20 hours of like just full on, just by yourself in the wilderness, like riding through the mountains. And yeah, I mean, like, to try to go and make yourself do stuff like that is pretty tough. But I set out to do a fundraiser for a local homeless shelter, and we raised $5,000 for this local group called Our Community Place, which helps with social work and helps to feed homeless in Harrisonburg. And of course, with COVID and a lot of people losing their jobs, people being displaced, it's a, you know, an additional you know, can of worms that's opened up socially for people. And in any case, having that behind made that ride so much, not easier, I would never say easy, but it gave purpose to it. So I knew there was going to be nothing in my way. Like, I was going to steamroll it. Like, and sure enough, you know, that really aided my goals coming into that, because I knew it had meaning and had purpose for me personally. So it was a cool thing to do. Also, like, you know, just if you have a goal that is something that you and your friends are looking to do, you know, or something that's rewarding to you. When people set goals to do like things that they don't want, it's a little harder, but it's kind of nice when you have a way to, you know, make it fun.
I think it's interesting because we've all struggled in this period of time to figure out a way to have goals that involve anyone else other than ourselves, because it's just hard to have other people in that space. But I do love this idea of purpose, because if you're seeking things and you're going after whatever it is, and it doesn't actually have meaning and impact on you, it becomes hollow. Like, there's no reason to go seek a thing for someone to give you glory and put crowns on your head. And I understand, as a part-time narcissist, that this is that, like, I need some of that. I'm a Leo. I need some of that if we're going to get woo-woo, right? I need some of that adulation. That's fine.
Yeah.
But there is so much reward in digging hard for a reason that goes beyond you.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and especially now, to find these spaces where we're giving back in some way. Why do you think that giving back has positioned itself for you as something that's important? I mean, you had no one came to you and was like, "Hey, Jeremiah, ride this dumb ride from Roanoke to like, do you want to go do this?" Like, no one came to you and was like, "Hey, go do this." You came up with this idea. Why do you think that these sort of activities are important to embrace?
Because I think giving back is paying rent for your time here on earth. That's a pretty famous quote by Muhammad Ali. I think I messed it up a little bit, but having
We never remember who did a quote, so you're fine.
that's who did the quote for sure, and it was one of my favorites because when you look at some of the great drive that he had in his career, and he might not have been looking for the purpose, but the purpose came to him, and it crystallized, and he realized he had a great influence to change people's perceptions. And I think a lot of it is just he felt it was right, period. And when you feel that you're right and you're doing right, then you can be very proud of your actions. And I think, I mean, a lot of what we do as racers, let's just, paint it like it is. It's selfish. There's other people who can't afford food, and you're out there like, buying plane tickets to go and race Breck Epic or whatever race. I mean, like, put it in perspective. Racing, especially in South Africa, was really, it was really tough for me mentally because, some of the places that we race through, people, a lot of the folks don't have shoes. Post-apartheid South Africa, if you think the income disparity in the U.S. is gaping, it is just 10 times there. Bugattis and Ferraris driving around through the streets of Cape Town.
Yep.
And then, people just who are struggling to just, get food. And so those experiences some people might be able to brush those off, but I can't really ignore them. But I have been able to reframe some of the reasons for being there, and doing the things that we're doing and racing. And that's the inspiration that it can give. And that's the uplifting message that it can give to people who are trying to define themselves and trying to persist, survive, and thrive. So
here's an interesting one. When you're battling with those polarities of, like you said, like carbon shoes, carbon wheels, carbon bike, riding through this beautiful space past people, even if you're hungry doing this event and you have, goo or something like that, you probably have more calories in your pocket than they have during the day. Was there a part of you that was drawn to that because of that kind of mentality of wanting to go full circle for you and kind of be, not necessarily be the person that took a chance on you and helped you out, but did you feel almost indebted for the kind of blessings that have come around in your life?
No, I just felt like it's the right thing to do. If I can help someone or give back, then that's a big part of how my mom influenced me in a positive way. And she didn't have much, but she was always looking to give to charities or and I'm like, I never really understood it at the time, but it was something that she just thought was important. When she had, she gave, and then sometimes she didn't have, but she would always give if she did. And those were, I think it is more profound if someone is giving of themselves when they have hardly anything.
Mm.
I think that was something um, I didn't quite understand at the time, but it was important for her mental health. And I think it does feel good to do good things. I mean, it does.
Yeah.
You feel like, man, I picked up some trash today, or you
Yeah.
know,
There's plenty of like psychological like discovery, like they've done a ton of experiments, and like I hate to say it, but we're all not completely selfless. Like that's just kind of what it comes down to, and that's okay as long as what we're doing is towards the benefit of other human beings. That's how we should conduct ourselves, and I like that that's the space you've been in. So we're kind of creeping on the end of this here a little bit, and I want to talk a little bit about where you're at right now. So you've done all these amazing things, you've had all these amazing experiences, all these wins, all this sort of stuff, but you're out here at a high level still. How do you square um Jeremiah, the father, husband, all of these pieces of it, to still go out and take these sort of like risks to do these crazy things, like a dumb ride from Roanoke to Harrisburg, or Harrisburg to Roanoke in the
yeah,
middle of the night, right? Like, how do you square that stuff, that these are still things that you should be doing?
because there are things I need to do. I honestly, I still have that part of me that just can't sit still. I mean, love riding. And that's why I've been involved with so many projects, helping someone start a race or involvement with NICA. I think these things are important for me, but at the end of the day, I'm an adventure mountain biker, which kind of goes into adventure gravel, kind of bleeds into adventure gravel pretty easily. And I need a big challenge because, when you talk about having purpose, like, I kind of, if I don't have goal on the radar, I kind of get like a little blah. But when I've got that big thing coming and I know it's just hanging out there 4 weeks, 3 weeks, 2 weeks, I'm getting excited, I'm getting energy, I'm training, I'm, just kind of feeling those endorphins and getting pumped and getting nervous. And we all love that feeling. And that's what I think a lot of people miss from racing, but I can get it from doing these expeditions and things like that. And, I remember distinctly my first big expedition after our spring lockdown of last year when COVID hit was the Macedon Ring. And the Macedon Ring has a lot of steep technical ledges and rock drops and just brutally technical rocky terrain for all day. I mean, the course record is just now dipped below 12 hours on this thing. And I'm like, is the risk worth it? Like, if you go over the bars and break yourself, no one's going to find you. You can't call anybody. And I just said, hey, I'm just going to ride with it myself. I'm just going to sort of find my rhythm, but I've got to go do it. After things cooled off a bit and the world didn't like implode, I was like, all right, it's something I can do by myself. I can do this. And yeah, I think that, having those things keeps me pumped. So I'm pumped to do some gravel races this year when they're back online, but I'm also not in any hurry to like jump back into racing. Like I'm happy doing a Zwift race now and then, but I do have some really big projects online for this year. So I'm doing a 4 expedition series with the vegan cyclists, which is that guy with the impossible routes series. So this is really exciting, sponsored by Canyon. And I think we'll probably have to, have another interview with VC, kind of talk about this project a bit. Our first project is going to be across Death Valley. Then I'll get in more into the details about this crazy, crazy idea. But let me just preface it with it's probably impossible. So,
But I
But
think
you just got done saying that that's the stuff that really pours
you-
the nitrous in your tank of
oh,
getting you up for something.
oh man, I get just like stoked on it.
So let me ask this. As you know, there's we skipped over a whole bunch of stuff. We skipped over, you winning a whole bunch of races
Yeah.
and struggling through. You
you
mentioned
want a
it.
ton. You want a ton of crap. You want a
Yeah,
ton.
you won a ton of stuff. Before you hopped on the show, I was making fun of Doug because he didn't know how to pronounce Palmares, and I thought I did, and I told him how to do it, and he looked it up, and we were both wrong. So
Yep.
now there's proof of me doing it wrong.
All right. It's okay,
But
Ron.
and then
I'm not French. I don't have to worry about that.
no,
It's all good.
no. And you mentioned it earlier, going through 2008, the economic collapse and kind of the reset button that happened within mountain bike racing in general, but like every corporation was just like, no, we have no money to do anything,
Yep.
which invariably means somebody like you that was either on small teams or kind of privateer is like, what do I do?
Oh, yeah.
So as you queue up these ever increasing challenges as you're getting older, as your kids are growing up, do you see at all on the horizon you getting to a point where you begin to value that more than doing the 12-hour day in the super technical where you could end up, being helicoptered out of a place? Like, do you at all even foresee that on your kind of sphere of happenings?
It's in my risk management calculator, I just ride within myself, and I always leave that buffer room. So I might do some crazy stuff, but it's all very close to what I do in training. I'll leave you with this analogy. So for the Impossible Hill Climb, which we did last March, it was on Vegan Cyclist YouTube. I have a YouTube as well. Jeremiah Bishop's Wheelhouse. Check it out. Super cool videos. But yeah, I mean, all told, like this thing had never been done before. The gravel ascent up Mauna Kea, the world's biggest volcano, from sea level to 14,000 feet over the course of 70 miles.
That's dumb.
Just so terrible. And the altitude, they've got all these signs when you cross the threshold of 9,500 feet.
Yeah.
Danger. You're supposed to stop your car there and wait so you don't, have an altitude shock when you're going from sea level. And, altitude may be fatal.
Plenty of
warning
pleasant
here,
warnings
warning
that you
there.
desire to have.
Just suggestions. They're just
The signs were
suggestions.
amazing. I love, in the YouTube, when you're looking at these signs and you're just like, and yeah, I mean, like visitors from Florida that go to Colorado, yeah, I mean, a few of them per year, unfortunately, die from altitude, high altitude pulmonary edema or cerebral edema, and yeah, it's real. But also, I'd done my preparation, so I used a hypoxic tent. So I did 4 weeks of intermittent hypoxia with the trainer. I did a ton of training, a ton of 6-hour rides. So like I knew I could do it. It was just a matter of how long it would be. And the video is a lot scarier than the actual ride. Let's just say it that way. And so if you do your homework and you know yourself, and I know myself pretty well now, yeah, you're able to do some pretty awesome stuff if you put in the work.
I love the idea of doing awesome stuff. Whatever the awesome stuff is for you. Like Jeremiah Bishop's awesome stuff is not Doug McClintock's awesome stuff, right? They're very, very wildly different versions of awesome stuff. But I think that's where we all kind of meet in this space, right? We all meet in this space where for us, it's about challenging ourselves, whether that's like just on a mental basis or just on a physical basis or whatever the thing you're trying to push against.
Yep.
I think your story in general, is about pushing yourself and trying to find ways to challenge yourself to continually improve. And regardless of where you start or like where you began at, your process is always, okay, I did a thing. What's next?
Yep. I think that's a big part of the reason why you don't hear much about my backstory in my youth is that, for me, I like to get away from, my whole youth was trying to get away from that part of the story and to look forward. And when someone asked me about last year, I'm like, whatever. I'm looking ahead. I'm looking up. I'm looking forward. I'm looking at new things I want to do. And so I really don't linger on the past, and I don't post a lot on social media like the flashback, whatever throwback Thursdays.
Yeah.
I mean, I could be posting these pictures of me like, winning races in Europe or like, I mean, some really cool stuff. But that was then, and this is now, and I have to do what I can with what I have now. And so I'm just focused on, those things, and I'm always just focused on looking forward and, the next cool project and the next fun thing. And that's just the way I operate. I guess it's just, I probably should dig back into these stories and maybe write a book one day. But right now it's just, I'm always just chasing my tail, just looking for something fun and wild to do. And like you said, it doesn't have to be crazy. It could just be going up to the edge and taking a look. If the longest ride you ever done in your life is 130 miles, then you know what? You might want to go up there and take a look and see what 150 looks like.
Yeah, but I think it is interesting. You say you don't look back, but I think today we've talked about a lot of the things that got you to the place where you don't look back, right? The things that built you into the person that got you into the place where you're like, hey, those things formed me and they informed me, but I don't dwell in them. And I think for all of us, when we make challenging decisions and we put ourselves in tough places, you said very early on, I do not have regrets. I do not look back and wish my life was different. And it is so easy for all of us to sit back and say, just what if this thing didn't happen? What if this thing didn't happen in our lives? Then my life would be so much better. And we aren't given the ability to go back and change any of that. We don't have time machines unless anyone's invented one. If you
Yep.
have, at the Gravel Lot on all forms of social media, please get with me. I have some things I would like to erase from my past.
Fix some
But-
stuff, yeah.
Right. But we don't have that luxury. So how do we square those things and move forward with the knowledge that we gained in that space? And I think your story is so much about gathering strength from those places that allow you to move forward and using the tough things in life to really grow yourself and become a more whole person that is looking out for other people and trying to give back in the ways that you can, whether it's charity or doing all these things, but really putting good stuff that's inspiring for other people and putting something, right? Like I always talk about the poster on the wall, right? We all had the poster of somebody on the wall, like Bo Jackson with the baseball bat and the football pads or whatever.
Yeah.
Right? Like we all have something on that wall, and giving people the opportunity to have that is important. And so this is kind of where I want to wrap this piece of it. And we ask this of all our guests every time they get to join us because we think this is important. And if you could give the Pebbles, our listeners, one thing that they could kind of take home tonight to kind of like chew on or rest their hat on and think about, what would you want that to be?
I would just say never give up. I think that's one of the things that it's very easy to, kind of hit frustration with an idea or a goal or something. And, I would say that if you can look at ways to reframe it, ways that you can bring the positives of that goal or effort that you're putting out there, then for the positive that you get from the experience alone, it's worth just not giving up and keeping a part of that in your life.
John.
Well, I'm thinking about our good friend Butch, who he might still be Zwifting. He might be done by now, but when I started doing the 6-hour races here in our Ohio Valley, I wanted to do them as a duo. So, most amount of time I'd be on the trail would be 3 hours, because I was nervous about being out for that long. That was some of the longest mountain bike rides that I'd ever done. I'd done centuries and things like that, but you guys know that endurance mountain biking it's a whole different animal.
Different.
And he just on my top tube before the first lap, before I hopped on the bike, he took a piece of masking tape and put "Death Before DNF" on my top tube. And it's one of those really macho sayings that, it's still your set type thing of, keep lifting, or like you were kind of talking about, lifting big weights, picking heavy things up and putting them down. And there's always more weight to pick up, or whatever macho things come with that. But it's interesting, and it's cool hearing you talk about it from the perspective of the things that you're going to personally take away from it versus the things that you could potentially destructively do to yourself if you quit. Whether it's, like you said, if it's on a backboard, that's one different thing versus just pulling off and saying I don't feel right, or whatever the case may be. So it's always interesting hearing multiple different people's perspective on it. And I've always been super impressed by how positive you are all the time. And that stuff comes with work, and that stuff comes with practice, and I commend you on that. And it must be from, I'm not going to go out and do these insane things that you do, or that you and VC are going to do. More than happy to participate in helping you talk about them.
Right.
But I'll leave that to you guys, and I'll do my own personal discovery, on less death defying things.
It's all relative.
Yeah, for sure. But I will gladly I will live through you like people in the 70s and 80s lived through Evel Knievel, and
there you go.
Excited. I'm excited for you to go do it, and I'm really excited to watch VC's videos about it.
Hey, I have a philosophy with these things. Racing is a little different because you want to win, but I think in the world of YouTube and expeditions, the worse it goes, the more the fans will love it. The more sideways it gets, the more entertainment value. So I have a much different, I'm not concerned about it. It's just going to roll, and we're going to do the best we can. And if the best we can is 3/4 of the way through the route, then hey, we learned a lot.
Failure is still a story. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You don't have to go win. You don't have to take it home. Failure is still a story, and sometimes they are the most interesting. So, well, dude, this has been awesome, folks. We're going to roll. We've got AMA. We got some questions coming in. Jeremiah, you can stay with us for a little bit and we can make that happen. Awesome. Folks, this has been just fun. We are here every single Tuesday. Please join us on all your forms of everything. A huge thanks to all of our Pebbles, everybody old, new, whether you're here for the first time and just found us because Jeremiah and he was like, go watch me be weird on the internet. Or you're a long-time listener. We're so glad to have you. Make sure to find us on our website, join the Patreon, support us. We're trying to make this good content happen for you, bring it to you every single week in 2021 to inspire you to find your cycling.
It's 8 o'clock.
It's 8 o'clock,
It's 8
actually.
o'clock, yeah.
It's 8 o'clock.
So make sure to do that. Go over to thegravelot.com and become a donor today and help us out.
And in addition to your generous support that keeps all of these things functioning, keeps our servers running, keeps the webcamming, and whatever verbs that we want to make up, things going forward, you guys help support us with that. We also have some great sponsors that have been with us for a long time, that have become really kind of family and partners to us. So Go support them. Click the links in the show notes. Buy their wares, buy their coffee, buy their goods, all of those things, because we know you guys love supporting the things that you care about.
Absolutely. Our wardrobe when we're on the bikes this week. So hopefully when you see us on the new Twitch gravel lot riding along on Zwift stuff, maybe we'll challenge Jeremiah to a race where we all get dusted. You can see us wearing BFRB apparel. Their stuff is amazing. We're in our 3rd year working with Adam. Their gear is top notch, and we are continually blown away by the quality, the attention to detail, and the customization and the turnaround time on all the stuff we've had. Head on over to bfrbcycling.com and get yourself outfitted for 2021 and your team. They do a ton of custom stuff, so go check them out.
And we are also, Doug and I and Ellen and Amanda and probably all of our dogs as well are all at some point powered by Grimport Brothers coffee, of which I got some heat last week from Dan because I said I only made it for special occasions. And then he challenged me saying that he always makes more. So this week, whether it was Amanda actually grinding the beans and brewing it or me, we have had Grimport Brothers every day for the last 7 days. And I am, it's bad, because it's upgrading my, just like Jeremiah, you were talking about how your like level of challenge needs to keep getting higher and higher, and like the bar needs, like now my coffee bar is like too high, so I feel like I can't go back down to regular stuff, or
this is how Dan gets you. This is how Dan gets you.
It is. He tapped into my like inner lizard brain and was like, no, there's always more coffee, and I'm like, well, I can make more coffee. Anyway, follow the link in our show notes. Head to the Grimport Brothers coffee, grimportbrothers.com now. Purchase any of their blends. Each one of their blends, you can read about them. They support individual causes in cycling, whether it's athletes or rides or charitable projects. And as a bonus, when you sign up for the coffee subscription service, you will earn a free bag of coffee. So that's like a $20 value. And he's been doing 12-ounce bags or the 16-ounce bags for 12-ounce pricing lately. He's got a whole bunch of specials going on. Regardless, it's freaking amazing coffee. So just go support Dan and people that love bikes.
Absolutely. Also go check out Hand Up Gloves. Awesome new designs, bunch of new stuff coming in. We've seen some previews. There's good stuff coming, everybody. Hand Up Gloves provides amazing gloves and apparel for bikes, snow sports, golf. Golf season will be back around soon. If you want to go do that, I'll be doing that with my in-laws. It's important. Got to make sure to spend time with them. So click the link in our show notes and use the code Pebble $sign at checkout to save 10% off everything in store.
And last but certainly not least, we have our newest sponsors, BioWheels, Fit Studio, and Workshop. Obviously, you guys know by now the retool services, the Guru Fit bike, all of those things offering you the most comfortable bike fit that you can get. I mean, Mitch was telling me the other day he's got people coming in from Arkansas that are driving that far during global pandemic to get a bike fit. So that tells you the quality of what he's offering. And then the whole host of other things that can come with that to get your fit perfectly dialed to your body. And last but certainly not least, which also ties in with the BioWheels, is the Ritual All Natural Skincare. One of the first sponsors of the show, because it was my business for a while. All natural, locally sourced ingredients going into making chamois cream, because the last thing that you want to do when you're babysitting everything that you put into your body is to put some petroleum products on your skin and have that stuff soak in. So it is all natural skincare. And now Mitch and his wife, Kate, from BioWheels have taken it over, and they are actually doing custom blends for teams and shops. So if you have a team and you want a custom blend or a brand or a shop and you want something custom with custom labeling that is a specific chamois cream built by you for your specific customer base, get a hold of us and we will make it happen. That is the Ritual All Natural Skincare. So as we've said from the beginning, we love hearing from you guys. Be sure to visit all the social feeds. Go to thegravellot.com. We almost are at a point now where we have new content coming every single day. had some really fun conversations with some great people that are bringing more content to you, hopefully in the month of March. It's one of those things where we're close enough that it's like, let's jump out of the plane and build the parachute on the way down type stuff. So once we get that, we will have individual content for every single day of the week. So go to thegravelot.com.
You're not sleeping.
There is tons of stuff coming. We are really putting the work in and trying to make cool things happen and make cool things for you guys to interact with. So you guys found us here. So every Tuesday, 6:30 p.m., Facebook, Twitch, YouTube, we're going to be here no matter what. We're going to keep doing this. Live streams, AMAs, the podcast comes out Thursdays, the Beeline articles on Monday, Girls Moving Mountains on Wednesdays. Guys, we are making really, really great content for you, and we could not be happier about it.
Super stoked to be able to do that for all of y'all. Our new intro and outro music is from Waterboy. Many thanks to him for all the jams. Check him out on all the major platforms or click the link in the show notes. It's AMA time. Folks, there are questions rolling in. We've got a few of them. Let's knock them out of the park right meow.
Yeah.
John, you want to hit the first one?
For sure. So this speaks a lot, I think, to, before we even get to the questions, I think this speaks a lot to your story, because I was worried that the chat wasn't working for the first half of this podcast, because I think people were just listening to what you were saying and telling stories. And then once we started to get closer and started to wrap things up, like, there's a whole host of stuff showing up. So the first one that I want to jump off with is one that you and I actually talked about a little bit in beforehand, but we also had somebody else ask it, is, are there any memories from your racing career, not necessarily stepping up on top of a podium, but those times that get seared in your memory bank of, oh my God, this time when blah, blah, blah happened?
It would almost have to have like, worst moment, best moment. There's so many incredible memories from racing all over the place.
All right, worst moment. Let's just do worst moment. Like
worst
spot where you thought
we've been pretty positive for the last hour and a half. Let's bring it down a notch.
You can bring it down a notch. So I was at there was a race called the Intermontane Challenge in Kamloops, British Columbia. Big stage race. I had steamrolled so many of the U.S. stage races. I was going up there with confidence, and I won the first stage. Chris Shepard, I guess he had an issue with his bike, and I put a gobble of time into him, 5 minutes on the stage. I put a couple more minutes onto him on the second stage. I mean, I was almost 10 minutes ahead in the GC, and first place was $10,000.
Sheesh.
Yeah.
That's real money.
That's cheddar.
It's pretty solid. But I kind of got a little too absorbed externally. And these are some of those moral lessons that I've learned over the years. Never race with anger, is one of the things that I've learned. I've got all these sayings for myself now, but they usually come after some sort of big lesson. And Chris Shepard got busted for doping. He was part of the Canadian mafia that, was stealing a bunch of races from us. And so when you talk about like all these headwinds I've had, I finally get up to the high level and everybody's doping. And so like now it's just like, I'm almost there, but I
don't want to take that leap. Yeah.
It's nuts. Well, I mean, I was surrounded by drugs as a kid, and so I wouldn't even take an aspirin until I was 22. I mean, it was like I was straight edge as it could be. In any case, I was like riding a little bit out of my, limit, basically. And you have to respect your own limitations. And I was coming down a descent. Chris Shepard actually helped build the descent. But I didn't want to give him a single stage win. Like, that's how like vicious I was in a younger version of myself. Anyway, so I was coming through a corner in the dust, dropped down in the ravine, went over the handlebars, fractured my back in 2 places. Compression fractures, fortunately. It wasn't like a really bad break. And then I remember like yelling up from the ravine, like 12 feet down in this ravine, and Tinker Juarez comes by. And I was like, help, help.
Man. Well, he wasn't that old.
I think I'm dying. Okay, that was pretty embarrassing. So, not only was I a dumbass and crashed myself, but I also get helped up out of this ravine by multi-time Olympic, Hall of Famer. But it was so cool. Tinker was a teammate of mine at the time, and we're friends ever since. And heart of gold, Tinker. I don't have too many heroes because I don't really believe in idolizing people, but I would say Tinker's pretty legendary for sure.
Pretty solid choice.
Yeah.
Also for the day, like that's a good reference of "Don't Drive Angry" if we're actually recording on Groundhog Day.
Totally,
Don't
man.
drive angry.
You have to, I'm definitely in my Zen years for bike racer, so I'm still, I'm still focused and fiery, but I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm not angry because it does you no good.
Absolutely. And I do, at some point, we do need to get Tinker to tell us that story about finding you in the ravine. We will make that happen because I guarantee his story's a different one. He's like, I came upon this guy.
I thought there was a troll under the bridge.
Yeah.
All right. So
that was a low light for sure.
So another one that we have, so I'm trying to phrase this one here. The next one, John.
Is it the second one? Because I'll ask it. So the question was around the idea of you only looking forward in kind of your life. Do you think that you are like as you talk to us, and as you kind of look at things with hindsight and kind of connect successes today with learnings from childhood, teenage years, 20s, etc. Do you think that you're missing out on some of the teachings that you can offer people by being more open about your story and telling it other places other than kind of how we've barely dipped our toe in the sand here?
Tip of the iceberg. Absolutely. And I'm 100% at the point in my career where I'm successful enough in a number of different areas with a coaching company, with consulting, with producing events and things. I can be completely honest. And I've done so many things that I'm proud of that very much outweigh, the very beginnings. Yeah, for sure. 100%. I think it'd be great to discuss it more. I have 100 wild stories. I mean, like the story of, riding the Greyhound to Mount Snow after my car broke down. My first car was a Ford Festiva. It's like $400 piece of junk. Real quick story. So I'm like training and working hard, and I finally got a car. My uncle, fixed this POS up, and it worked for about 6 months. And then finally the alternator broke on it, and I had this big race. Not only a big race, I mean, it was like the crown jewel of American mountain biking. I mean, it was like Mount Snow, Vermont, like the World Cup was held there. It was just the stuff of legends. All the pro Euro riders would come over. Team Brooklyn would have the naked crit. I mean, the parties were just,
those things are important,
ridiculous. If you've ever been, you would know it is a cultural, like, it was like a festival. It was like Burning Man for like mountain biking.
Yeah.
So if I had to get there, you don't understand. And so like when my car broke down, like I couldn't borrow a car. Everybody was driving up by themselves, had already left because I had to work on Thursday at the bike shop. So I got like Greyhound tickets. I'm like boxing my bike, put it on the Greyhound, drive the Greyhound up to Grand Central Station, New York City. And of course, the next bus doesn't leave until the next morning. So I'm sleeping like on my bike box in Grand Central Station, get on the next bus. Oh, it was beautiful. Perfect preparation for a race.
Nothing like being rested.
Oh, it was terrible. Got up to Troy, New York, where that bus line stops, hopped on another bus, which takes you to Bennington. And then from Bennington to Burlington, I was like, all right, well, I got to get rid of this bike box. Put my bike together. the damn skewer's gone. It fell out of the handhold of the, bike box. And I'm
Oh,
like,
no.
God, but luckily I found a bike shop. So I go in, I find this bike shop, I get this skewer, I buy a skewer, put it through, I put my backpack on my back, and I start riding up the effing mountain toward Mount Snow. I'm still 45 miles away. Meanwhile, I got my thumb out. Old guy in a truck pulls over, is like, it's a pretty big hill, isn't it? And I'm like, yeah, you mind if I hop in the back? And so I hop in the back, get over to the next town. And he's like, well, I'm going straight. You got to go left. It's only about 20 miles left. And, day's getting late. The clouds are rolling in. It starts to rain. And then it starts to dump. And then it's just pouring. And all my clothes in the backpack are wet, soggy, and nasty. And I'm like, just getting to a small village called Jamaica.
Yep.
And then I hear this little rumble. And it's the Katera Klein team. They've got the sparkling, shiny, graffiti paint job, NASCAR, this massive, massive truck. And another guy from Baltimore, Charles Aaron, who runs actually Rally at the time. His driver, his mechanic was there, and I knew his mechanic, and he looked out, and then, honk, honk, wait, just honked the horn, just kept on, plowing through all the way up to Mount Snow.
Oh, no. Oh, there was the ride. It was the ride. You had the ride. It was there.
Yeah, no, I didn't. No, I was on the outside till I was on the inside, buddy. Let's not paint it.
That's another place where we get to say that's a whole nother podcast, because
that's a whole other podcast.
Yeah.
And you know what? I had to beat some heads in on the race course in order.
But part of that
News was based in Colorado, and they weren't going to talk about some kid from Virginia or Maryland. I had to basically swim upstream the whole way to make it. And
but I think for folks coming up, I think there's a lot of purity, and there's a lot of connectivity in that. Of, you didn't show up in whatever kit people think of you in as
yeah,
whatever. But you in your prime, when the US series that you kicked everyone's ass in 1 year, you showed up to that event, and it's you see that van point, and you're like, well, we're all racing for second. So in those moments, the stories that you're telling now give credence to
getting
all of those successes. It gives you the getting there story, rather than it's, Michael Jordan being cut from the high school team and then using that as putting that on the wall and saying, I'm going to come back and I am going to kick all of your asses. And you have a very a similar story.
It's my survival. A lot of the not looking back is just survival instinct, honestly. And I have to rewrite that. I'm not. I've long since shelved the ego, but the ego at the time was essential in order to build the confidence and the mental energy to take on these challenges, both my personal challenges and the challenges I faced. It was just where I was. And fortunately I can see it now from a little different perspective, but it reminds you that when you think stuff is not going your way, yeah, that's going to happen, and I think it's the stoic lessons that I've learned throughout the years have served me well later on. And, if things go my way, awesome. If things don't go my way, cool.
You'll be all right.
Yeah, it'll be all right.
You've learned plenty through it. Exactly.
Yeah.
So one last question that I want to pose to you before we roll off of here. So somebody said you've got this amazing trajectory and history of moving, your stoke from this crazy event to this crazy event to this next crazy thing to this next crazy thing, right? How, if you had some advice for folks, especially maybe an adult who's never bitten off one of these kind of major type of things, right? Yours just keep getting more ridiculous. But for someone who's kind of walking into this in a space where they want to try to bite something off, what would you want them to like? What would there be their kind of requirements? How do they find the first thing to sort of start to bite off?
As far as training or as far as
As far
event?
as like choosing a thing to do.
Ah, I think there's sort of like a handful of real tough guy races in the United States, that sort of capture the story. There's always some 50-mile run or some like 100-mile mountain bike race. They're all over the country. And you kind of just have to do a little research into which ones are, you know, going to match your style. Like Margie Gessick 100, really tough, super technical, very physical, very difficult. Um, that might be your cup of tea. And some people just, are more fitness based. So Leadville 100, Unbounded, formerly known as Dirty Kanza, that event, is really kind of more of a fitness based event. And so you kind of just have to find what tickles your fancy and what kind of is fun, and sort of build some progression in your preparation. So I always like to think, have something that'll get you halfway there. And so if you want to do a Leadville 100 in August, don't just show up cold turkey, try to do the 100K in June, or try to do the 50-mile race in April. And then build your way up and sort of, gain confidence, as you kind of tick along that schedule.
So I want to ask a part B to that is being even more reductive and taking us like as cyclists, as athletes out of the equation of like, oh, what's your next escalation of what about the person that they don't like, maybe they picked up walking over the pandemic, or maybe they got a bike because they had that doctor's appointment where the doctor sat them down and had that like come to Jesus talk of like diabetes, blood pressure, you need to take care of yourself or you're not going to be here. What
Yeah.
like taking, again, like I said, taking us out of this equation of like, oh, what's the next insane thing that I want to accomplish where I'm going to, be able to sleep for 2 days afterwards. What advice can you or can we be able to give those folks to help nurture them in trying to find the thing that gives them stoke? Because they haven't gotten to that point of like, man, I forgot how much I love bikes, or man, I really like jogging, or I found a great group of friends at the gym that I go swimming with. Like they don't have any of that foundation yet. So where, like, is there any advice that you can give to those folks of like,
For sure. I think
where do you start?
Well, try new things. I mean, just take a look at like the sports in the Olympics, I mean, how many of those sports have I not tried of the 200 sports?
Curling.
Yeah, I haven't tried 190.
I was gonna say most of them.
Most of them. And this fall, I did this sort of DIY triathlon thing, and like, I was like, this is really gonna kick my ass because I can barely swim. Like I'm terrible at swimming. Like there's a little old lady who's like 80, like swimming past me, like that's the level. So when you talk about beginnerism, like, I can be like talking about these relatively high level goals, but I just tried to finish a sprint triathlon this fall. And yeah, I needed to like crawl before I walk before I ran, but it was really, really grounding. It really, it was a moment in which I said, wow, if I don't use the gift of what I can do on a bicycle, I'm a freaking idiot.
Huh.
Like I had better, I had better take and do some rad shit because I felt like I was just crawling along with training wheels on. You know, like your very first bike ride and you kind of get stuck in the gravel, like, you know, and your training wheels, you go off a pavement and you just stop.
Yeah.
Like as a kid.
Yep.
Like that's the feeling I had when I couldn't even swim across this pond without taking a break. Like that was that moment of like, wow, I stink at this. But it was cool. It was super cool because I finished, you know, and I think just, you know, having, you know, these goals, they don't need to be monumental. They just need to be rewarding to you. And if losing 5 pounds is rewarding to you, if working your way up to walking 5 miles one day is like your like high five moment, then that's awesome. I mean, it's awesome. Just go and do your thing and don't worry about what other people think. You know, if you want to do dance cardio with your headphones on at the park and go rock those stations and put your leotard on, just own it, man. Just get into it and do it. Have fun. Because that's what fitness is about, and that's what moving is about, and that's what being alive is about. You know, if you're watching this podcast, you are not dead. Go use it.
That is true. That is, let's hope.
Hopefully,
let's hope there's not a bunch of corpses watching this
podcast at Bernie's.
I'm saying, I mean, it's not to be, it's not to be,
no.
But you know, one of the sayings in Stoicism is realize that one day you will be, and
Correct.
that clarity, that like cold splash of water in your face says, hey, I can do some cool things right now.
Yeah.
And what if I put stuff off, that window closes. The window is closing for me right now to do these things on my bucket list. And so when it looks like I'm kind of urgent to do them, there's a reason, because I have this awareness.
I think that's important. We should all live our lives with the awareness that the window is always closing. We should be taking chances and growing ourselves and constantly pushing forward. I love that. It's even a better coda back to what we were talking about before. So, well, Jeremiah, this has been exceptional. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. What a great conversation. We look forward to having you back, Pebbles. All the questions you didn't get in, we'll save them for next time.
Yes.
We're super stoked. Thanks for being here tonight.
Hey, thanks, Doug. Really appreciate it, John. I really am glad you asked me some questions from way back. And yeah, I'll make sure to share some more of that stuff.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
we
it's
appreciate
it's much appreciated. And thanks for taking the time. Thanks for taking the evening with us. And thanks to everybody for listening to us. This is, I mean, we say it every week. This is always so much fun for Doug and I. And hopefully you enjoyed it as well, Jeremiah, and hopefully everyone listening to this is enjoying it as well.
All right. Well, everybody, it has been awesome again to have all of you joining us this week. We are so stoked you were here. Thank you so much. We appreciate all the support you have. Make sure to go visit thegravelot.com, become a Patreon, subscribe, or engage wherever you can on all the forums of all of that. That is all for this week. So be sure to do all those things I just aforementioned, because as you know, decisions and trails are made by those who show up. So if we don't see you on the trails this week, we'll see you next time. Bye, John.
Bye, Doug.